Hello, my name is Juan Ignacio Ibañez. I'm a General Secretary of the MiCA Crypto Alliance, and I've been a sustainability researcher for the past 10 years. Today we're going to do something that is fun. We are going to be reviewing the MiCA white paper of dYdX. Now, this is a very interesting situation to be in because the dYdX Foundation has published a white paper for dYdX without being the issuer or the offerer of the dYdX token. So they have been making available as a public resource a white paper about dYdX so that dYdX can be listed even if they are not in the position of an issuer or an offerer of the token. The dYdX Foundation is not a specialized party in writing white papers. However, they have done a great effort in writing this white paper. It looks really nice and it definitely deserves taking a look. So, what we see on screen right now is a dYdX white paper published by the dYdX Foundation. And now what we're seeing is the date of notification over here. Now, of course, there is no date of notification, and that's because the dYdX Foundation is not submitting the white paper, is rather writing it, and somebody else can take this white paper and submit it to seek admission to trading for dYdX. But this white paper does not constitute an act of seeking admission to trading, and therefore there is no notification. This is correct, I would say. If we continue looking at the white paper, we see a number of mandated statements, predefined alphanumerical text that needs to go in the white paper and cannot be edited. However, let's look at what's going on in indicator number 2 here. Now, this indicator says this crypto asset white paper has not been approved by any competent authority in any member state of the European Union. The author of this crypto asset white paper, as identified in section C13 below. Wait a second. This, as identified in section C13, is not in the regulation. They have edited the predefined text that shouldn't have been there, so this is one of the things that you know when you're really into the weeds of this. You cannot just edit the predefined text. It needs to go exactly as it has been mandated. Most of the other indicators are very well written. There's not much to complain about. It's actually a very well written white paper, and we see here a description, a summary of what dYdX looks like, information about the non-seeking admission to trading and offer to the public over here, and that's also great. And then we enter part I. Now that's interesting. Parts in a white paper are ordered alphabetically. You have part A, then B, then C, then D. So why does this white paper start with a section called Part I? Well, unfortunately, this is because the dYdX Foundation in this case have used an old template of white papers. So last year, in 2024, the European Securities and Markets Authority, ESMA, had published in their second consultation package a draft model of what white paper should look like, and in the second version of this, they moved the section on risks, which was part I and was almost at the end of the white paper, from the end to the beginning. And they were doing that because they were thinking that in this way they can highlight the risks to the reader. By moving them from the end to the front of the white paper, they thought that the reader would have front of mind, top of mind, what the risks of a crypto asset are. In the latest version of the regulation, the one that actually was published by the European Commission, the one that actually made it to the official journal of the European Union, this is not there. So it's one of the giveaways that you're working with an old template, that you have part I in a place that it shouldn't be. White papers today are ordered alphabetically as in the original model. But let's continue. We go on to part A, information about the offerer or the person seeking admission to trading. Now there's nothing here, and that's because the dYdX Foundation is not an offerer nor a person seeking admission to trading, and if somebody wants to use this white paper to offer dYdX or to seek admission to trading, they need to edit this part, but it's correct that they have marked each one of these indicators as not applicable. Then we have part B, with information about the issuer, if different from the offerer. Again, the dYdX Foundation does not issue dYdX. It's a decentralized ecosystem. They're just supporting it, so this is correct as well. We now see part C, with information about the operator of the trading platform and other persons drawing up the crypto asset white paper. And here we see that most of the section is not applicable. However, the last two indicators, dYdX Foundation has left information about itself because they are another person drawing up the white paper, and they explain why they write the white paper. And like we saw before, they say over here that they are publishing this white paper in good faith for informational purposes only. So this does not constitute an act of offering to the public or seeking admission to trading, which is great. And now we get into the meat of the white paper, the meat and bone. Part D, information about the crypto asset project, where they describe, well, first of all, the name of the project, the name of the crypto, the abbreviation of the crypto, and the description of what the project is about. And here, what we see in this section D5 is a description of all the natural and legal persons involved in the project. There's an issue with this. If we look at the guidance for this indicator, we see that this indicator needs to be written in a tabular format. So it's correct that they are identifying the parties, the address, their function, but it should be a table. And yes, we're already in a table, which means it needs to be a table within a table. As weird as it sounds, that's the correct format to have here. And after this, actually, we see indicator D6, which asks you to describe if the token is a utility token or not. And they mark that it's not, which is correct, but it's not correct in the format that they've done it. These yes or no questions in MiCA white papers need to be written as true or false, so they should have written false here. It's an issue of formatting, of course. The content at the end is correct. So now we move on to part E, which is the part that has information about the offer to the public or the act of seeking admission to trading, which is mostly not applicable because the dYdX Foundation is not doing this, so they have just marked everything as not applicable. The only quibble I could have with this is in indicator E32, where this indicator has actually determined a format for how you need to write in the field if your answer is not applicable, and that is you need to use the acronym NTAV, which they haven't done. So of course, if you want to have perfect formatting, that's what you should have done. But of course, it's correct. This section is mostly not applicable. And then we go on to part F. Part F continues the work started by part D with information about the crypto asset. So what we're going to see here is a description of the crypto asset type, the functionality, the planned applications of the functionalities, and here the dYdX Foundation is the auto plans because all the functionalities are deployed already, which is great. The type of white paper and everything in this section seems to be written very well. One quibble, however, here in indicator F10, the publication date is written as 15 May 2025. MiCA implementing regulations require a very specific format to write dates in general, and that is year, month, day. So it should have been 2025-05-15. Here's where the problems start. So if you see this section, you will see it has 20 indicators. But if we look at the official guidance, it has 19. So what's going on here? Why did the dYdX Foundation write a white paper with one indicator more than is in the guidance? Well, look at indicator F12. So indicator F12 says identifier of the operator of the trading platform. But if we look at the guidance, that indicator is not there. F12 is the indicator of the language or languages of the white paper. So what's going on here? Why has this white paper included an indicator that is not in the Implementing Technical Standards? Well, again, that's because of the template that has been used. In the second consultation package by ESMA last year, they had published a white paper template that included one indicator that didn't make it to the final version. So unfortunately, this white paper has been written relying on the outdated and not official model. So this is why they have an indicator that doesn't exist, which also breaks the numbering for every subsequent indicator that is not properly numbered and should actually have one digit subtracted from the number that they present. Also in this vein, look at indicator F14, which, if you recall, should be indicator F13 instead. Well, here they are required to write the digital token identifier of the token, and they write dYdX, right? And this makes sense conventionally. Oh yeah, the identifier of the dYdX token is the acronym, the ticker dYdX, but this is not what the indicator is about. The digital token identifier is a unique identifier that you can find in the registry of the Digital Token Identifier Foundation. It's around, I don't know, 10 digits, so it's definitely not this. You need to go to that registry to find the DTI for your token and put it here. If you don't have it, you can put that it's not applicable because it's not mandatory to have the indicator. But if you have it, you need to write it, and if you don't have it, you need to say that you don't have it. In the next indicator, there's also what we call a functionally fungible group digital token identifier. And that's because, if a token is issued on multiple chains, it will receive on each version a different DTI, and then there's a functional DTI, making them all fungible with each other. And what we see at the end is a series of small issues with the formatting. If you remember, in white papers, you don't write yes or no. You write true or false. And this is what we should see in indicators F16 and 17, which should be 15 and 16 if you remember. Whether there is personal data or not is a true or false question, so they should have written false. And whether there's voluntary data, it should also be true or false. A voluntary flag needs to be placed in the white paper if the white paper is written in a voluntary manner, that is, if you don't have a mandate to write this white paper to seek admission to trading or to offer it to the public. Indeed, this is what the dYdX Foundation is doing. They're writing this white paper voluntarily without a legal obligation to do so, even though they have not used the right format. The content is correct. Now we're getting to the end of the white paper. We see part G with information on the rights and the obligations attached to the crypto asset, and then the dYdX Foundation here explains all of this in relation to dYdX. So you will see a description of the governance rights, of the staking capabilities. I think this is very nicely written. Here we can find a series of small quibbles to have with the white paper. In the number of issuer retained crypto assets, they should have written 0, not applicable, or again, utility token classification is a true or false question. We'll see that again here with G9, whether if you're seeking or not seeking admission to trading, you need to write true or false, not sought or not sought. We also see that in indicator G12 with the supply adjustment protocols. Now, it's interesting that there is a description of supply adjustment protocol. So this indicator requires you to describe how the supply of the crypto responds to changes in demand. So if there's more demand of the crypto, what happens with the supply? Now, if you think about it, usually nothing happens. With stablecoins, what you call asset reference tokens also, it does happen though. So if there's more demand of a token, maybe more tokens are minted and the price stays the same. If there's less demand, then maybe units are destroyed and the price stays the same. But with your usual crypto, if there's more demand, the supply doesn't change. It goes up in price. And if this demand falls, it goes down in price. So why are we asking crypto to describe their supply adjustment protocols? Well, most likely it's simply an error, a copy from the e-money token white papers, from the asset reference token white papers, onto the other types of white papers. I was not supposed to make it to the final version, but it made it. Now, interestingly, dYdX Foundation is writing here that there are supply adjustment protocols, and they write yes, which, if you remember correctly, they should have written true. And here they describe, well, that they have a fixed supply of 1 billion tokens, and they explain that this could be modified potentially, but in principle it's not going to be. Well, that's fine, and that's a nice explanation, but it's not a change in supply in response to changes in demand, so actually they should have written false here and make indicator G13 not applicable. So here it's not just an issue of format, it's also an issue of understanding of the content. You'll see a few more of these little formatting errors, but let's not dwell in all of them. Now we get to part H. A continuation of the description of the token project, but now more focused on the technology. So dYdX Foundation will use this to describe the technology, the protocols, the consensus mechanism of dYdX chain, and this is very interesting, and this is the most educational part of the white paper probably. Now, interestingly, we see in indicator H1 that they just use 2 words, dYdX chain. That's the distributed ledger technology that they used. Of course, that's correct, but that's probably not enough, right? The reader needs to know about dYdX chain. This is your opportunity to describe that, so they probably should have elaborated more. Now, something interesting about this indicator is that if you provided a DTI in indicator F13, you don't need to complete this indicator. But they didn't provide it, so maybe they should have completed this. Then we see a description of the protocols and technical standards used. And here they write, the token was created as a native token of the network. Well, that's good, but that's not really a description of protocols and technical standards, is it? So they probably should have elaborated a bit more and delved into actual standards. But then there's a description of the technology used, of the consensus mechanism, and that's very interesting, the incentive mechanisms and the applicable fees. And here we have indicator H6 and H7, where you describe use of distributed ledger technology, and interestingly, dYdX Foundation has written no. Now that's interesting. Why would they have written no if dYdX Exchange obviously is a blockchain, which is distributed ledger technology? Well, and they are correct here. These indicators' guidance established that use of distributed ledger technology needs to be answered true if the distributed ledger technology is being operated by the issuer or a third party on their behalf, which is not the case, right? dYdX Foundation, nobody else is actually controlling dYdX change, so this is what they are telling us here. Again, they should have used the format false, but the content that they've written is correct in spirit. And finally, we have a description of audits. Has there been an audit of dYdX chain technology? Yes, there has. They should have written true, but yes, there has. And then they describe the outcome of these audits. It's better, it's the best practice if you actually write the outcomes in the white paper so that you don't refer people to third-party documents or outside documents, but at least they are sharing that there's been an audit and what the results have been. And at last, we get to the sustainability section. Now, this is my favorite area, my specialty. We do a lot of work at the MiCA Crypto Alliance on this, so I always love looking at sustainability sections. And it begins with a repetition of indicators that we had seen before. The name, the legal entity identifier, the name of the crypto. So they describe this. What we will see is that here in indicator, what they call J1, should have been S1 probably, they should have written, well, the name of the issuer, the operator, the offeror, other person writing the white paper. So probably should have been dYdX Foundation over here. If you want to describe the name of the crypto, you have indicator 3 for that. But they go ahead and they describe the consensus mechanism and the incentive and applicable fees, which is what we have seen before. And finally, we get to the quantitative information. So first, they give us the dates to which this information corresponds. Again, there's a small format violation in how the dates should be presented. And finally, we have the energy consumption, the quantitative indicator describing the environmental impact of dYdX chain by proxy. dYdX here gives us two metrics, the average and the median, and they take some liberties here and they explain a bit of their methodology over here. Ideally, what you're going to do is just provide the number here in kilowatt hour per calendar year, and you can explain your methodology in the next field. Now, these are not the only sustainability indicators that there are in MiCA. There's around another 25 indicators more, 26 indicators that they could have added, but it's true that these indicators are not mandatory to dYdX because the energy consumption doesn't cross a threshold of 500,000 kilowatt hour per year. So they do the right thing at stopping here. They could have provided more information, and if they had done it, they would have described the carbon footprint, the energy mix, the water footprint, the impact on natural resources, a bit of electronic waste descriptions, but overall, what they've done is correct here. So there's a few things to correct in format. The description also of the methodologies should be following some requirements of the delegated technical standards in CDR 422 from 2025, but overall it's a nice section. My overall reading of this white paper is that being written by a foundation that's not specialized in writing white papers or in MiCA, this is a really great resource and a starting point to actually use this white paper and improve it to get dYdX admitted to trading in trading platforms where it's currently not admitted. So I applaud this level of initiative. Of course, there's things to improve, but again, my congratulations to the dYdX Foundation for having written a very detailed description. I hope they enjoyed it, right? Because when you write these things, you get into the details of the project and you relive the descriptions of the technology. For us, it's a pleasure to also review white papers, to benchmark them, to score them, and to tell you how you can improve. So if we can help you, your project, or if you're a trading platform requiring white papers to get other projects listed and onboarded onto your platform, well, reach out. The MiCA Crypto Alliance can help.